Frank is a lonely war veteran who sells hot dogs for a living after his girlfriend ditches him for somebody else and companies refuse to hire him. This changes when he beats the crap out of two baldies who harass a gentleman on a bus, and a viral video of this makes him an overnight internet sensation. Suddenly, the people who wouldn't even look at him before paint his face on their walls and t-shirts. Cops become his personal bootlickers, and even talk shows call him up to boost their views. As a neo-celebrity dubbed the Badass, Frank has a hard time dealing with everyone sucking up to him, but his mother is nothing but proud. However, she dies after a few months and leaves her house and beloved dog to him, reducing Frank's social circle to just the dog and his best friend Klondike, who quickly moves in with him. As the two discuss their city's increasing crime rate and get high on convenience store beer, Klondike hands Frank an envelope for safekeeping and heads out to buy some cigarettes. Sadly, his little expedition doesn't end well as two attention-seeking thugs stop him in his tracks and demand to know why he isn't adding them back on Tinder. Klondike tries to make excuses, but the thugs remind him they aren't here for his stand-up comedy, but for the flash drive he took from them. When Klondike feigns ignorance, the gangsters point their guns at him to help him remember, but he quickly shows them his boss. However, his victory celebration doesn't end well when one of the thugs shoots him, and as he dies, they flee the scene. The following day, Frank learns of this tragedy and visits the police station, where the case detective meets him. He instantly recognizes him as the badass from the bus and promises to find those behind Klondike's demise. That night, as Frank tries to bargain a lower beer price with the local convenience store owner, he refuses to do so, explaining how his own ass is getting whooped by capitalism. Right then, 3 armed robbers barge in and tell the store owner to empty his cash register, only for Frank to tell them to leave the broke man alone. This diverts their anger towards him, but being the pro bono street fighter that he is, Frank quickly gets rid of them and receives a free bottle of beer in exchange for his public service. Once he returns home, he enjoys his drink with pictures of Klondike and his mother when his foul-mouthed neighbor, Martin, recognizes him from the viral video and tells him he admires him. Frank tries to pep-talk him into becoming more respectful when his stuck-up father arrives and takes him back inside. Later, as Frank watches the TV, news about a suspect being caught catches his attention, and he notices that the victim was a white boy. The next day, he takes this argument to the police station and accuses the detective of being racist, but they tell him they are trying the best they can. However, their best turns out to be a game of makeshift basketball that Frank finds out about. Pissed off, he takes matters into his own hands and puts on his smarty-pants and thrifted fanny pack before heading to the crime scene. There, he finds a bullet casing and a locket with a woman's picture that leads him to a local pawn shop. Although the shopkeeper has no memory of the bullet, he recognizes the girl in the locket as his neighbor and gives him the address. Frank returns the locket to the woman and learns that her husband Terrence has long forgotten about the 3 accidents he fathered and prefers to play basketball at a local park than see his own wife. With this info, Frank heads to the park where a bunch of jocks decide to test their muscles on him, only to get their bones butchered. Once Frank is done mopping the floor with half of them, the other half behaves and shares the address of a guy called Ronaldo, who they think might know about Terrence. As Frank uses a local bus to get there, the town's corrupt mayor blames the gang leader Panther for destroying his master plan by letting the flash drive get stolen. Panther says the drive does not have nuclear launch codes, only some personal info that'll likely ruin his reputation, but reassures him that he'll get it back. The mayor tells him to send his resume to DoorDash if he fails again, and asks him to take care of the madman looking for revenge while he's at it. On the other hand, the said madman feeds his dog at home and takes out the trash. As he's chatting with Martin, Frank gets caught up in a fight between Martin's mother, Amber, and his deadbeat father. When the latter leaves, Frank notices that Amber's nose is bleeding and takes her to his house to provide first aid. There, he rizzes her up by offering some store-bought food and ice cream, and she in turn invites him to dine with them someday. The next morning, Frank continues his hide-and-seek mission and heads to a local bar to find Ronaldo. The gangster in there refuses to give him anything but his weak-ass punches, and as soon as Frank starts beating into a pulp, his minions join in too, only to receive the same treatment. After he's done here, he heads upstairs to find Ronaldo and asks him about Terrence's whereabouts. The dude takes out a penknife and thinks he's tough, but the knife is nothing to Frank as he easily hangs him like day-old laundry on the railing and threatens he'd let him go. After getting the info he needs, Frank goes grocery shopping, only to come across his cop friend, who tells him to stay low-key on seeking revenge, otherwise he'll be arrested. Enraged, Frank gets out of his car and heads home, only to see it's been ransacked. What's more, a 7-foot-something giant picks him up and demands to know where the flash drive is, only to be yeeted out of his window like a football. Suspicious of the drive now, Frank seeks Martin's help to read the data on it, only to discover that the town's mayor plans on chasing the residents away by keeping the crime rate high so that he can use the land for expanding his shady business. After learning this, he impatiently heads to a local massage spa where Terrence's side chick works. He asks her about Terrence when she massages him, but she lies that they've broken up and quickly flees the scene, raising suspicion. At night, Frank tails her to her house. However, tough luck intervenes and he's caught by her neighbor. He tries to lie his way in, saying that she's his girlfriend and he's breaking into her house to surprise her. But the neighbor only lets him in when he recognizes his local celebrity status and fanboys like an internet geek. Later, as he enters the house, catches her and Terrence in the act and wonders what kind of breakup allows you to sleep together. Terrence tells him to get lost, so Frank warms up his geriatric muscles on him before leading him to the kitchen and reminding him of Klondike's death. His interrogation begins by pushing Terrence's hand into the garbage disposal and making minced meat out of it, and ends with the culprit's name, Panther. Frank politely thanks him before leaving while poor Terrence writhes on the floor. He returns home to overhear a fight between Amber and her husband and breaks into their house to witness another episode of domestic abuse. When Frank warns him about hurting Amber, her husband wonders if she's into old-timers now and attempts to assert dominance, only to have his hand fractured. As he runs away like a mama's boy, Frank's romance with Amber develops, and she invites him to have lunch with her. Excited to finally have a chance with a woman, Frank combs his long hair, trims his greasy beard and washes his face for the first time in 40 years, before putting on his hand-me-downs from Target and heading to her house with a flower bouquet. On the lunch table, they raise a toast to Amber's son, Martin, and bond over how cool Frank is. However, just as he's about to get his first kiss in forever, Martin walks in on them and completely blows his chance. The following day, he gives Klondike's flash drive to his cop friend and asks him to take care of his dog if something happens to him, before heading to face the final boss. Panther's underlings try to stop Frank from meeting him at their hideout, but the boss himself comes to greet him due to his celebrity status. He congratulates him on his newfound fame and on chopping his partner's hand off, but tells him to rest up since he's done too much at his age already. Frank reminds him of Klondike's death, but Panther insists it was his fault since he was stupid enough to steal from him. He further asks Frank about the stolen flash drive and explains its definition to his old ass, but Frank feigns ignorance to it and tries to land a hit on Panther, only to meet the end of his winning streak. Now tied up to a torture chair, he watches Panther laugh his ass off as his underlings shock Frank to refresh his memory of the flash drive. As he sizzles in pain, Panther blabbers on about how he's going to become the new Mother Teresa with the noble plans they have on the stolen drive, while Frank looks around for ways to escape. He tells Panther he's already aware of the master's scheme to make people suffer they had on the drive and refuses to give it up, making them grill his stubborn ass once more. Tired of going around in circles, Panther pulls out Frank's wallet, only to discover Amber and Martin's photo, and heads off to torture them instead. As soon as he leaves, Frank pulls apart the binds around his wrists and sets fire to the diesel containers. As an explosion erupts, he runs after Panther to beat the crap out of him. However, he stumbles upon a dagger and cuts him instead. While Frank whimpers in pain, Panther flees to escape the fire and steals a bus from a local driver to head to Amber's house. Frank leaves the warehouse just in time too and follows his trail. However, he doesn't have to steal the bus, since the driver is a super fan of his and thanks him for gracing his bus with his shitty driving skills. Imagining that they're in the new Fast and Furious movie, Frank and Panther destroy the city and face each other during a final showdown. However, Frank chickens out and crashes instead. On the other hand, while Panther initially celebrates his victory, a train wrecks his bus too, and he barely survives. Still high on that adrenaline rush, he runs on foot to Amber's house, while the limping Frank follows after him. However, tough luck still outruns him, and he stumbles across the two baldies from the bus who rant on about how his little stunt on the bus made them the neighborhood clowns and wiped out every chance of them getting laid. One of them pulls out a camera and the other prepares to sucker punch him, only for Frank to steal the victory this time too. Meanwhile, Panther breaks into Amber's house and threatens her with a kitchen knife, asking about the flash drive. Just as she says she knows nothing about this, Frank crashes into him. However, Panther completely whips his ass this time and brings their fight to the lawn. As the bystanders begin filming the scene, Amber jumps on the bad guy to buy Frank some time, which he utilizes to completely annihilate him in a one-sided boxing tournament. As he lies all bloody and defeated on the ground, Frank and Amber officiate their relationship with a hug. A few days later, the mayor's plan gets exposed to the public while Frank's fame skyrockets. He's even made an honorary police officer in exchange for his services, something he's wanted since he returned from the war, and begins a happy, peaceful life alongside Martin and Amber, his newfound family. This brings us to the end of Frank's fall and rise to fame. Comment, what a badass? Below to let us know you enjoyed this story and make sure to like and subscribe. See you guys in the next video.